Hi, everybody. This is day 1568 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss. On Fort Bliss, um, we have the receipts, and it was an internal. An internal. The evidence shows, the evidence confirms that Richard was a code red, internal attack, an internal murder. Um, the failure of leadership is huge. And we see that with the news today, right? With all the news that's being sent. I mean, it's over and over and over again. This is just one story. Let's make sure that everything's working. Okay. So everything is working. And we have part 2 of the audio drop. It says the audio drop of the nickels and dimes, trying to clean that up a little bit. We think that that's important for people to understand the motives behind um, the motive behind Joe Spencer, and the motive behind him, because when you receive more and more of the audio clips that we have from the audio recordings that we have, you will start to understand. You'll ask, why is he doing this? Why did he do this? Why is he such a criminal? Why is he like such a mob boss? Um, because listening to the recordings, he just sounds like a mob boss. And that's why that song started like that. Mob boss. Hi, Marilyn. Thank you. Justice for Richard Halliday and his family and friends. Thank you so much. And you, you know, after everything that we have gone through today in our investigation, that means so much to us, because right now, accountability, that wave of accountability just got huge. Just got huge. It's been coming, right? And the those that are going to be held accountable are starting to cry. They're starting to cry a little bit. Oh, it's why are you picking on me? No, they are so narcissistic. They will attack and they can hurt as many people as they want. They can defame people. They can cover up for these murderers, for the criminal trafficking, for the trafficking of children that are now mostly dead. They can absolutely delay in their reporting of children being very abused of the worst kind in their sex cults. They can absolutely participate in the fentanyl trafficking, where you have so many deaths from fentanyl. They are absolutely narcissistic. They can do all this to other people, and yet when legally we are bound by God to hold these people accountable, right? Because they hurt so many people, then they cry. And then they cry. The one person that I didn't see crying was Patrick Crucius. Why? Is he full of rage? And um, is he everything that they have led us to believe that he is? That even with the evidence out there, you still have people calling him every name. And it's like, excuse me, where's the evidence? Or there's such a lack of evidence. Why didn't they bag his hands for evidence? Why is his shirt clean, his pants clean, his shoes clean? Why did he surrender himself to a Hispanic police officer? Why? And you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it. Why does he say no? Um, you know, he's not racist. Why has this fraud been perpetrated on the federal court, right? Because that's what Joe Spencer has done. And it's not only there, you have to understand that it's connected to Fort Bliss. You have to think about Glendon Oakley Jr., who was just days before he was found dead in his barracks room on Fort Bliss. He was ordered, he was ordered by his command to get rid of his Twitter, right? To get rid of his social media, to obstruct justice, get rid of evidence. Anything that you put on there is evidence. And anything, any remarks by other people, like all of the bullying, he was under severe retaliation for being a witness in the Walmart mass shooting case. And we have, evidence that absolutely corroborates that he was being retaliated, like Richard was being retaliated for being a witness in the Walmart case. And of course, Richard's truth is under the Walmart case. And of course, you see the motives of why they retaliated against Richard, why they were trying to discredit him. They tried to discredit all of the witnesses. They absolutely went all out to discredit Glendon Oakley Jr. And they did that with Patrick Crusius. And Patrick Crusius, being special education, being special needs, having a severe a mental condition, being autistic, I believe that he's nonverbal. When I say nonverbal, I'm not saying that he can't say a word here and there. I'm saying that he really, his mind goes so fast that he can't get it all out, right? Um, so I'd really love to hear him speak and defend himself, because I just haven't heard it. And that would be a fraud against the federal court. One, um, and you're going to hear with these audio drops, um, Joe Spencer admitting that when he met Patrick Crusius 2 days after the incident, that Patrick Crusius didn't even fathom what was, had happened, and that 23 people had been, well, at that time, 22 people, or in the time of the audio recording, 23 people had been killed. And, these injured, he just couldn't even, he just didn't even have any memory of it, or, and that one or two, Joe Spencer saying maybe one or two that he killed or whatever. But yet, the crime here is that he's telling the federal court that Patrick Crusius is totally aware that he killed 23 people. But behind the scenes, he's saying he's not aware. And it took 5 years for us to know what Patrick Crusius' neighbors said, and the witnesses that Loretta Lynn Hewitt interviewed, that said when Patrick Crusius was 3, he was banging his head on the sidewalk, that he was absolutely so severe that people were telling the family that he shouldn't have even been able to live when he was younger because he was so sickly. That he was in special education. Why didn't we hear that at the very beginning? Why were we hearing that he created a manifesto, that he was enraged, that he had hate in his heart, that he was a white supremacist, that he, this whole fall, it's like they watched a movie or something and put together this narrative. Um, that is not Patrick Crusius. And as the evidence, and I'm not just saying that because I'm like, well, I guess. No, the evidence confirms that Joe Spencer committed a huge fraud on the people of El Paso, on the world, right? In the political scene, because it's very political what he did, but also in the federal court, to lie to a judge, a real judge, right? Because we have a lot of fake ones. So to a real judge, to lie to him and say that Patrick Crusius is totally aware and plea deals, right? And also is full of hate and pleas and says yes, he committed hate crimes, when the evidence shows the opposite. The evidence confirms the opposite. So what is the motive behind Joe Spencer? He's supposed to be the defense attorney. With a defense attorney like this, who needs a prosecutor, right? Thank God, because Bill Hicks is, usurper. But this is another thing that you're going to learn through these audio drops, is that Jaime Esparza is involved in this. And Jaime Esparza, I haven't talked about him too much. He was the DA at the time. He has a long, very long history of being the DA in El Paso, and he is the Attorney General for the Western District of Texas, and he is absolutely part of this whole case in a very interesting way, and not like what you think, because he was removed from the case. He was removed. He could not touch the Walmart case. And that's because his sister was in the Walmart. His sister was in the Walmart. And, this is, you're going to read you can read it already in the El Paso Times article that, some of the bits of the recordings that we have are in that El Paso Times, which, we're trying to, assess the whole matter and think about the whole matter. And we're like, oh my gosh, El Paso Times has these recordings because they wrote an article about it. So where did they get these recordings? They must have gotten the recordings, or the recordings then went to law enforcement. Did it come out of, well, all I know is because they were in an El Paso Times. Remember yesterday I was saying, find Richard Halliday team. They've trusted us. We've earned their trust. We received these recordings. Well, we're not the first ones to get them. I have to be honest with you. El Paso Times had them. They have them. They have them. And that means law enforcement have them. What the hell is going on? They have them. And this proves that Joe Spencer has perpetrated a fraud on the people in this case, right? And on the federal court. Because he absolutely knew that Patrick Crusius couldn't fathom, however you pronounce that, couldn't understand, was not an understanding of what was going on. Yet he pleaded him to understand. He absolutely knew that Patrick Crusius wasn't a white supremacist, that he wasn't full of rage, that he wasn't full of hate, that he, he surrendered himself so kindly minutes afterwards to a Hispanic police officer. No blood. Clean shirt. I don't know if I should, can say that word. Clean shirt, clean pants, clean shoes. When you are full of rage, like what the narrative was saying, you don't look like that. You don't act like that. It's like the beautiful video of Richard where he's standing at attention, is so obedient, so beautiful, and they were trying to say he was something that he wasn't, and here the video is there, and they just couldn't win. And they can't win with the lies surrounding Patrick Crusius. And I know that people have squiggly eyes, that they're looking at him with hate. They're looking at him with rage, because even when at the sentencing, you know, there was all of this verbiage of hate and go to hell and die 1,000 deaths and whatever. It was directed to the wrong person. The real shooters are out there. They're at large. They're at large. And a big reason for that danger that is now, risking the lives of so many people in El Paso, so many people on Fort Bliss, because this is absolutely connected to Fort Bliss. This is why we have such a failed leadership on Fort Bliss, breaches of security, because these are absolutely connected. My goodness, it's because of Joe Spencer. A big part of it. And Judge Medrano. Because Judge Medrano and Joe Spencer, in these recordings, Joe Spencer is saying that they absolutely knew that Jaime Esparza could not mess with this case, that he had a huge conflict of interest since his sister was in the Walmart. And yet he kept him on the case for 2 years. 2 years. Why? For the nickel and dimes, for your nickel and dimes. To nickel and dime you to death. And so you might not think that drop is very important. It's huge, because he's giving you the motive. I don't want just nickel and dimes. I want an open checkbook. I want the millions. And he got the millions. And that got approved by Judge Medrano. Those funds have to be approved by the judge, the way I understand it. And so, let's just fake the narrative, go along with this hate crime. This is a special needs individual that seems to be, to me, has a very hard time verbally. And so we'll just take advantage of him and milk as many millions as we can. We got this guy here we can blame everything to, and he's not of sound mind, and he's not very verbal. So we'll just take advantage, and we'll blame it all on him. It is the most evil, despicable thing. But that's where the evidence confirms, what's going on. That's how this is all going on. They wanted to carry something like this out. It takes a lot of people to carry something like that out. It takes a lot of people, one person to kill 23 and injure 23, shooting thousands of bullets. You just don't shoot a bullet here and there. It's not, Jesse James. It's not Wyatt Earp. It's not, you go in and there's all kinds of motion, and all of a sudden you have soda bottles flying at you, which was a lie, but you never know what's going to happen. And things went wrong because the evidence confirms that things went wrong. And, where is Patrick Crucia's family speaking up against this attack on their son? If he was part of it, which he was part of it, but wouldn't you want to get the narrative right for the legacy of your son? Uh, you know, I do. I do. I want to make sure that what we know what happened to Richard is the truth. And they were putting out the most insane narratives, and I was like, "Look, I just want the truth. Let's just find him." And you're telling me he's this and this and this, and I'm like, "Well, that's good reason to go find him." And then, they started with all their psyop stuff, and I'm like, "I don't care. You got to find him first. At number 1, you got to find him first. And why are you putting out these false narratives about him when he's a missing soldier and can't even speak up for himself? And Patrick Crucius is, a special needs individual that cannot speak up for himself. And then you have Glennon Oakley Jr., who is military and absolutely retaliated against and ordered not to speak up for himself. And then you have Judge Madrano before the hearing even starts, because the timestamps confirm that he's telling everyone they're not allowed to speak up for themselves. He gags them. That only happens when you're trying to hide the truth. Why do you want to gag people? Why do you want to delete evidence and obstruct justice? The only reason would be to hide the crime. Because if you were trying to get to the bottom of the crime, you would want to put everything out on the table that you knew and investigate it outwardly. And, it's like the JFK files. Why have they sealed it for so long? Because they were hiding the truth. They were hiding the murderers. That's why. Not for national security, it's for national detriment. And they absolutely need to open up those files so that we can see. And, you have that was the weaponization of our government against our own duly elected president. And you have the weaponization in Richard's case of the military, of the look, just look at who his lawyer was, look at who was his supervisor. Um, it's just jaw dropping when you connect all the dots. And these audios do that. Now, just cleaning them up so you can hear them. It was in a hotel. There's more, and there's more other places. But this is the real Joe Spencer. And Joe Spencer absolutely confirms that he committed a fraud on the federal court. And he absolutely committed a huge crime against a special needs individual who was his client, and he had a duty. So thank you. Thank you. God bless you and your family for all that you are doing, praying for justice for Richard. Thank you so much. So much corruption. Yes, absolutely. And it's compromise, and it's the compromise for the mega bucks. And what has happened is a failure of leadership. Take this soldier that got drunk and got behind a wheel and killed these two people. Okay. We have been told, and we have been absolutely pounding the military leadership about the breaches of security on Fort Bliss, about the lack of following standard operating procedure, about the violations where they're bringing in the girls to party during the COVID lockdown, that the soldiers were telling us, parents were telling us, loads of people were telling us, and soldiers were telling us that they were staying drunk. And you even have the soldier that went to Ukraine to fight, that defected into Russia, that was interviewed by Russia Today, co- absolutely corroborating that they were staying drunk constantly. He said he was drunk for 2 years on Fort Bliss. Staying drunk for 2 years on Fort Bliss. That is failure of leadership. And and then they were trying to uh tell us about our son, and I'm looking at it, I said, well, that's not punitive, and they were like all upset, and the JAG was so complicit to this crime. Okay, I'm just telling you. Just because of that incident, looking over my shoulder, giving me a big folder saying, oh, yes, your son is so bad. And I'm like, no, he's not. And I'm not saying, no, he's not. I'm saying, no, he's not. The evidence does not show it. The evidence shows that he's so beautiful. But you're trying to do a hypnosis on me. You're trying to do a googly eyes on me. You're trying to pull me into a matrix. And reality says Bill Hicks is not the DA. The law says Bill Hicks is not the DA. The law says that Mario Raskin Ortiz, who's taken 430, 400, more than that, every year from taxpayers, is illegal. He's illegal. And, now with this new administration, it's going to be very interesting because of the fraud that he's perpetrated in El Paso in as a judge in El Paso as a judge, as chief medical examiner. And that those individuals that sit on the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court, that they also are committing a fraud by calling themselves judges when they are not. Because to be on that court, you must be elected. Because the law says they must be elected. And the law says they must be elected because they're there with so much power, with so much jurisdiction. And if you have that much power, you need the oversight of the people that you're supposed to be making rulings over. They need to have a connection. They need to be they need to be dependent on the people so that they can establish justice properly, deal out justice properly. Because if they're considered unfair, if they're considered weaponizing the law against the people, then the people can vote them out. So the voting, the election is a restraint against evil. And look, just 2 days ago, we had the greatest example of it. The restraint against evil. And, you're seeing the beginnings of what that means. That even doctors, even pharmaceuticals are being scrutinized already. And that the military leadership is being scrutinized already. And they were so narcissistic and saying, oh, you're going to get me. Yeah, because you've been killing our soldiers, because you've been killing the people, because you've been doing your psyop, um, creating these false narratives, hurting so many people. And the law says that you have committed a crime and that you need to be held accountable. I mean, we've got crimes from treason to all kinds of theft, all kinds of fraud. It's so much fraud. And what is the motive behind it? You know, what is the motive behind the murder of Richard? What is the motive behind Joe Spencer to sell out a special needs individual where we have evidence in the recordings that he knows that he is not aware and can understand the charges against him for the plea deal, and that he is not a white supremacist. And I'd like to ask Patrick Crusius, who wrote that manifesto? Who loaded that up? Who had the money? Because look, the fraud goes as far as them filling out the application, having Patrick sign it, and them saying that Patrick was not worth one penny, that his net worth was zero, that his net worth was zero. When he was living in a very expensive, a posh apartment in San Antonio, and San Antonio has, enough Hispanics there. See, that's another proof that, he's living in San Antonio. He wasn't living in Dallas. So, and for his understanding of immigration and everything like that, that needs to all be scrutinized, because I don't think he does. And then for that kind of fraud, money fraud, the hate crimes fraud, the 23 murder fraud, the I just had another fraud that Joe Spencer committed, and it escaped me real quick. There's so many. It'll come back to me. It'll come back, because he has committed so much fraud and on the court. And he absolutely weaponized his law license. Because he absolutely is loyal to somebody. He's got to serve somebody. And it's not the Texas Bar Association. It's not his oaths. It's not his morals. It's not any kind of pity on his client. He wants the money. He wants the nickels and dimes, but he doesn't want them in nickel and dime fashion. He wants an open checkbook. He wants an open checkbook, and he wants millions. And that is what you're going to see. The ex parte backroom deals to seal. Of course, Jaime Esparza and his conflict of interest, because his sister was in the Walmart. There's just the jurisdiction issue. Those are all audio drops coming. We're just putting it all together, and and we'll be dropping those one by one. But the main part with that is that the law enforcement has had them for a long time. And they allow, oh, yes, I just thought of what Joe Spencer's doing. He's parading Patrick Crusius around in chains, tampering with the jury pool, tampering with the minds. It's such propaganda of the people. It's subtle propaganda because they're not saying, oh, look at him, he's in chains. But yeah, look at him, he's in chains and he's in his jail gear. Oh, that must be because of the federal case. No, no, because that's a different jurisdiction. Joe Spencer has every right to have Patrick Crusius cleaned up, well fed, and in that court in a suit. Because in Texas, we have a presumption of innocence. And what he is doing is tampering with the case. He's tampering again with the case. So thank you, Anicia, for coming on. Thank you so much for the prayers and the love. Um, just a lot going on. This whole thing with Major General Taylor, he has absolutely no excuse for being such a failure of a leader. And this is our problem. This is our problem. It's not the system that's the problem. It's these leaders. And now with Trump, with President Trump, President-elect Trump, he is a leader. He's fearless. And he keeps going. He keeps going and he brings people together. The election, when you look at the election numbers and who voted, he's got it all. Maybe not the sex cultist. He doesn't have the sex cultist, thank God. But he has those that want peace. He's just got all kinds of people from all over the world that are Americans, um, all races. It's just really, really amazing how he brought people together, and just really hopeful, especially after today, seeing some things that were said and done. And it's really moving things in Richard's case. It really is. We have active and ongoing cases, and they are severe violations. And this one with Joe Spencer is no different. It is a huge violation. And why is it important to us? Well, this injustice that's being done to El Paso for millions and millions of dollars of lies for years and years. Joe Spencer needs to pay that back. He needs to pay restitution. And because he's so compromised. And, of course, it's about the Walmart mass shooting case. Um, Richard's truth is under that, and we want our son's remains, and we want accountability. So you're going to hear a lot, and it should start with Jaime Esparza, but I started with the money, to let y'all know the motive, and then once they're on that case, the Jaime Esparza and his connection with Richard, with the Walmart case, and going forward to Yuval Rosales and Bill Hicks. And the scheming that has gone on. About Leilani Hart and Dallas Hart and James Hart. About, um, uh, Bill Hicks. Uh, uh, about Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, about 3905 Bliss Avenue. How that's connected to Danae Katzen. How that's connected to the Walmart case. How that's connected to KTSM. You know how this is connected to El Paso Matters. You know how this is connected to FitFam El Paso and the intelligence community. And so it's all being revealed, and the wave of accountability is huge. It's coming, and these people have hurt people. That soldier that just killed that couple in the car, and it was a brutal scene, a brutal scene. Um, that is failure of leadership. When you have years, people say, oh, well, soldiers will be soldiers. No, that is by design, because we have plenty of times in history where soldiers are full of esprit de corps and are disciplined and are even singing psalms and have the best intentions for the people that they serve, for the country that they serve, um, carrying the guidons. We have plenty of examples of that under good leadership. And we have leadership where the soldiers are absolutely demons, that they are absolutely, um, when they come, people are running, because there's so much trouble when they come. And we have history of that too. That's absolutely purposeful failure of leadership, of turning our military, our young volunteer sons and daughters, and that's when some of them are conscripted, um, into you know a power to hurt. And what happened in these years on Fort Bliss are leaders that want to turn their military into those that hurt. Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss, y'all. And Glennon Oakley Jr. was found dead in his barracks. Asia Graham was found dead in her barracks. She was raped in her barracks. And a 14-year-old girl was living in the barracks being pimped out too. And then the command sergeant major was bragging that he was bringing in these young girls for these parties during the COVID lockdown. This is a failure in leadership. And leadership matters. Leadership matters. And it's just one thing you cannot deny about President Trump is he is an amazing leader. Because yes, people came out in droves to vote for him, but that only could happen with an amazing leadership example. Tirelessly campaigning and reaching out to the people. It's just such an amazing thing to see. And if you know history, and you've read, letters from George Washington, and he's been so demonized. Read some of his letters. They are just amazing letters. Amazing. And he was a hero for so long, in mountains, right? In the mountains, his face, for a reason. Leadership matters. And right now, El Paso is suffering because millions of dollars was going to fraud, waste, and abuse in the Walmart mass shooting case when it could have been going to something much, much better or in the pockets of the people. Leave it in the pockets of the people. They need it. And look at how they've handled this case. Oh, yes, we have a CID, we have an FBI, we have a CIA, we have an intelligence community, we have Texas Rangers, we have El Paso Police Department, we have CBP, we have 15 plus agencies, Interpol, sheriffs, uh, Mexican government, Mexican military, ATF. Remember ATF? They don't get involved in anything unless there's firearms involved, and absolutely with this trafficking, firearms are involved. You just saw it in the news again. 11,100 uh, bullets recovered at the border. Where do they come from? Where did they come from? Where were they going? Right there in El Paso. So, or on the border with New Mexico, that area, Sunland Park. Um, you know, this is a failure of leadership when they tell the family of a missing soldier that they won't do anything. Oh, we'll just brought you back on our jurisdiction because you did that Instagram. You did the Instagram post. And wow, we got to kind of control the narrative. So we'll bring you back on. And now, we're not going to help you unless you bring us leads. Bring us leads. You know how many times they said that to us? So we did it. We investigated. We brought them leads. We have documented. And, there's been a failure in leadership with Sean Bernabe, with Eisenhower, now with Taylor. Before that was Matlock. Before that, Major General Clem Coward. He is absolutely a criminal in this. He's a suspect of weaponization of his powers, of his tools against Richard without a basis. And not because I said so, because the evidence says so. The July 9th evidence says so. And the video says so. It's just, I'm a little feisty tonight because of, you can't help it when you're listening to these audio recordings and you just are like, what? There's breaking news all the time that Joe Spencer knew 3 years ago that Patrick Crucia, he knew 2 days after, 3 years ago, he's admitting in these recordings that 2 days after he knew that he wasn't in his right mind, that he was autistic. He knew he was autistic. And, and it's just now coming out. We have to have recordings to prove to everybody because, the law enforcement have had these. What have they done? Are they part of the cover up? Because if El Paso Times had the recordings and we're getting the recordings now, then absolutely the law enforcement had these recordings. But it was millions of dollars, y'all, not nickels and dimes. It was an open checkbook. They are out of control and they are very greedy and they are huge liars and they've committed a fraud on the federal court. And I don't know how that's all going to pan out. But that is absolutely a criminal offense. Matter of fact, I'll put it up. Because Patrick Crucius was not a white supremacist. He was not racist. He was not full of rage. He was not in his right mind to even know what had happened. And he could never have plea dealed for 90 life sentences, 1,000 years in prison. 1,000 years. Okay, short of 1,000 years, but 1,000 years. Maybe he's will live a very long life, 90 times. Okay, Danielle, I'm gonna answer questions now. Sorry. He's scrutinizing the FBI. He's scrutinizing the um, President Trump coming in gives us a lot of hope. And I don't know when I accidentally touched that. It's a news microphone. Um, but yeah, it does give us hope because he is absolutely scrutinizing the agencies because they were weaponized against him and against MAGA, against J6. We were at J6. So, absolutely. It's against children, right? Against children. So, he has absolutely the duty to address this and to hold these people accountable for their crimes. And I'm telling you tonight, one of those is Joe Spencer. Okay? One of them is Joe Spencer. He needs to be held accountable for his crimes. And another one is Major General Taylor, right? There's a lot of them, but right now you have two people dead because they did not answer to all and react and solve all of the warnings and the leads that we have given. There's no excuse. And his answer that he gave in the paper for the excuse or for the reaction of what the leadership was going to do in the aftermath of two El Pasoans being brutally killed in a car accident is it's so bad. It was so bad. It's like push a recorder and they have this recording and it goes out every time this happens and nothing happens. It's just they need to be held accountable for their failure of leadership, and we pay them for all kinds of charm school. They still don't know how to give condolences. Um, they absolutely get paid for all kinds of war college and all kinds of training, and yet what are they doing there? Is it the sex cult, doggy mass, whatever? What's going on? What's going on? Because this is absolute failure of leadership. and 325 to 500,000 children processed through the Fort Bliss Emergency Intake Center, and now they're mostly dead. Where are they? And I get reports that they're selling them for organs. It's just like the sex trade. It's like organs. It's like, and I'm like, what? This needs to all be investigated. And you just cry. You just cry and cry. Especially us, because, what did they do with Richard? I've never heard Trump mention Richard Halliday's disappearance. Trump was president when Richard Halliday went missing. Yes. And um, Richard was in communication with Washington, D.C. While Trump was president, and the Walmart mass shooting was absolutely weaponized against MAGA, against Trump. Remember, the guns all sit there for the photo op for Trump, and blaming it on white supremacy and MAGA and everything like that. They absolutely politicized this to Trump's detriment, to the supporters of MAGA's detriment. It's kind of like when they called everyone trash, when they called everyone Nazis and fascists. And I believe Joy Reid just called Florida white supremacist or fascist state. I mean, something so absurd. I lived in Florida. Um, no way. It's a very multicultural state. My gosh. They are just so, their motive is so evil, divisive. Um, just because, but Trump did, they went after Trump right before the election, remember, with Vanessa Guillen. And Trump absolutely has been mentioning over and over again the unaccompanied children that, are missing and now mostly dead. He's the only one that said that. That's Richard's case. Okay? That's Richard's case. Um, it's going to be interesting how this is brought out, because Richard's case is so big. It's very hard, I think. Um, it's hard enough for family and friends to understand this case. Now that, everyone's getting, it's years and years, right? Um, but for the public to hear it all at once, they have to understand about the military leadership. He came after the military leadership today. That is huge. Uh, calling them out for what they've done. Um, the attacks on children. He was the grooming of children, the sex cult. He called that out today. Today was a huge day. And so I think he's laying the groundwork to Richard. You have to remember that Richard was reporting that. And if people, understand that Richard was right there in the center of this storm and on Fort Bliss, where these children were taken, and that his platoon leader, Dallas Hart, was actively engaged, according to his mother's notarized confession and other evidence that we have, the incest, the child porn, the um, uh, sexual assault of a 7-year-old in Leilani Hart's master bedroom by multiple members of her household. Um, you know, there's more evidence that we have about selling people out to other people, family members out to other people. Um, there's so much, there's so much, and it's so bad. And the violent gun, the illegal gun purchasing, the threats and everything. And, but if you have a judge that's threatening, that a judge that's gagging, a judge that's unlawfully investigating because they want to weaponize against a whistleblower, when you have um, the military ordering Glendon Oakley Jr. Uh, to to obstruct justice, to take down his evidence, ordering the military to not talk with us, to not reveal what they know. Um, you know, absolutely. The first sergeants needed to communicate with us. They should have been there at the rally, at least one of the rallies. No, what you had is a command sergeant major, fine. But where were the first sergeants, right? Where was his unit? Where was Captain Park? Where was Captain Yoshida? I never have met him. Why not? They should have all been there at all those meetings, at all those rallies, at least a few of the rallies. And, when you have leadership that's hiding everything, where was Clem Coward? Why hasn't Clem Coward written us? Why not even a condolence letter? Why not an apology for weaponizing? Because, he's on the line, he's on the hook. And with this change of leadership, a leadership that will hold these criminals accountable, um, the wave of accountability is getting bigger and bigger. And so they really have hurt so many people. And I think once that's all out, the failure of leadership, the children, everything, then you can say, oh, yeah, and there was a soldier that was in the middle of it, and he was reporting on all of it, and they tried to hush him up, and they also weaponized their tools against him, and they tried to discredit him with retaliation, and it didn't work, and so they just decided that they would have to order his death, that they would have to order his murder. And because they did that, they didn't call the family, they didn't notify the family, they didn't even help the family, they even kicked the family out. Once the groundwork for people to understand is there, that'll, the media is the big problem, right? The media has these recordings. Why didn't they just pound these recordings of this fraud that Joe Spencer has committed against El Paso, against the federal court? Again, they absolutely should have clarified that Patrick Crucius was autistic, was not in his right mind, and did not believe he did this, and has some verbal problems. Where's the media? They have been derelict in their duty because they do oversight. But no, they have become propagandized to the highest collar, and they're compromised, with a lot. There's a lot that are compromised with the Mexican cartel, just like there's a lot of in the law enforcement, and that's a foreign country. And you can't be compromised with a foreign country. Like Mealy says, he's going to warn China against his own commander in chief? You know, the honor your father and mother command, it doesn't say if you like your mother or father. It's the same thing. You don't have to like your sergeant. You don't have to like your leadership in the military. You obey them because they are your authority. They are your leadership. And, you might not understand their reasoning for certain things. And to honor your father or mother means, you keep your nose clean, and when people look at you and they go, "Wow, hey Sally, hey um what David, you've got a really wonderful daughter there. You've got a really, and they could be really losers, but you've honored your mother and father. And this is how the military works. You have the most magnificent soldiers that are supposed to be esprit de corps trained, and whether they like their leadership or not, they're going to do their best, and they're going to honor their country. They're going to honor their leadership, and the enemy will know it. So, and we haven't, we've had a criminal group that Mealy, I think that's treason what he did. He dishonored our country by doing that and setting an example for everyone else beneath him, which is a lot of people. So, yeah, it's, I think I will see what happens with Trump. We'll see what happens. I'm pretty hopeful and I'm praying. So, we needed a change in administration because the administration that was there was not getting it done. Was not getting it done, y'all. They were weaponizing. And so, God bless you. Thank you for coming on. And yeah, I will be back tomorrow, God willing.